What? Go now. Hey, welcome back. Today is what is January 3rd of 2024. So our first recording of the new year. So welcome back, Sierra from Sun Peak Official.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I'm ready for another year of great conversations.
Yeah, it's fun. I think it's getting better. We're getting a lot of engagement in the comment section. And yeah, you just had something like your think tank you just had over the weekend. So I think we're doing a lot of cool stuff out there. How did that go?
Yeah, that went really great. The turnout was good and the engagement was great, and it was nice to have a place to gather with other, growth-minded people and just talk about the year ahead. And I think it's really important to say your goals out loud and to acknowledge, what you're working towards with the right people. It doesn't have to be, blasted, advertising it, but I think sharing them and having some accountability because, you did tell someone you were going to do something and having people who will follow up with you on that is really important. So it was nice to be able to do that to kind of kick off the year. I haven't normally had that, so I'm excited about the community.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to hop on and be the wing nut or the nut or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
just there to goof around a lot of times, but it's
Yeah, but
fun.
you're like the hub that connects us all together, that everyone has some sort of like link back to you. So it's great having you around.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun though. It's always fun. A lot of people. I was excited that there was like different people on there that I
Yeah,
hadn't met.
yeah, a few people that I had never met as well. And there was a couple of others that had signed up that didn't end up showing up, or they may have been in the chat for a little while and I just didn't notice. But uh anyways, yeah, it was a good turnout.
Yeah, Landlord Odyssey was just like stealth. He was. I saw his name, but I didn't. He didn't say anything until like I guess like you said, he was driving, but he was listening. But yeah, he just hopped back in it.
I was like, oh wow, he's
Yeah.
been here the whole time, and I didn't have the chat pulled up very much, so I wasn't noticing who was there that wasn't on video.
Cool. Well, yeah, we got to do it again, and that was a lot of fun. But today, I've been seeing it a lot on X and or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. But it got me thinking, and I mean, I don't have this problem, but I want to kind of touch base with you and how you and your husband Nathan handle it. But a big topic is kind of how do couples or handle their finances and how do they, I guess, determine what their net worth is.
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about what we do personally. I want to um, hedge this a little bit and say that I do think it's circumstantial and it depends on your own situation. Of course, your personality and but I want to say one of the biggest factors is at what stage of life do you end up getting married, and what have you done for yourself by that point, and kind of where are you financially? So I think that's probably the biggest impact that would sway you one way or the other. Uh, of course, there's a lot of different beliefs on how to handle your finances as a couple. Um, the relational impact of combining or keeping things separate is definitely something to consider. So, that's all stuff that you should get on the same page about probably before you get married.
Would,
Um,
would you say you folks talked about it a lot before you got married?
no.
No. How about now? Like, is it something a part of the weekly conversation or?
I mean, we talk about our finances for sure, but because, so we, dated in high school and we got married very like my first year, right after my first semester of college, or first year of college is when we first semester was when I got engaged. And then after the first year, we got married. And but we had been together, from the point where we had no money. And so there wasn't really a desire or need to separate anything because there just wasn't anything to separate or combine either one. It was just kind of like whoever had, the money for the Subway sandwich that night was buying it. Um, and so I want to say like that's probably the biggest factor into why like our finances are completely merged. There really is no his and hers. There's no separation. It doesn't feel that way. We have throughout our careers been, I think only one time both been employed in at W-2 jobs, where we were like truly dual income, and that was for a very short period. Other than that, like there's been stages of life where I worked a regular job and he was in school and didn't have to work or worked part-time, and vice versa, where he was working full-time and I was in school and did a part-time thing. So it's kind of flip-flopped, and it's always kind of come out in the wash, in our opinion, as far as whose income is supporting who and how jointly we've earned that and stuff like that. So yeah, we are definitely all in together. It's very, very intertwined.
So what if like there was a big purchase that you wanted to make for yourself? Like how do you have to ask him or talk to him about it first, or you kind of just make that purchase?
So I mean, early on, well, we didn't have money to make big purchases, so that's really not an issue. The biggest purchases we had were tuition or
Hmm.
books for school. So yeah, there really wasn't any of that. So now anything I would say probably anything that's over $50, we at least mention it to the other person. Not so much for like permission, but just to kind of get feedback on, is this what we want the most right now? Is there a better way to buy it, or is there some strategy around the purchase that could whether that's, getting points from a credit card to, which one of our, perks might be best, or is there, he might see like, oh, well, I saw something like that on Facebook Marketplace for a little bit cheaper. Maybe we could do that. Like it's just more so to kind of strategize the purchase. We're pretty much on the same page about stuff. So I'm trying to think if there's been anything that I wanted. I would say with my business, which like the Sun Peak merch stuff, as a sole proprietor, that's my own. Uh, Obviously he's supportive of that. But when it came to like business purchases, it was just like, does my business have the cash flow to cover the purchase for that? So if I got an iPad to do more graphic design stuff, but I had the cash flow from the business to purchase it. And same with, recording equipment or my computer, like all of that's been cash flow from my business. So I would say I have, for the most part, control over the business purchases from within that entity. And I don't I mean, I still tell him like, okay, I'm gonna, I want to buy this computer, and like we look at them and we might compare computers together and stuff like that. But there's really no, I don't know, there's not really any negative, like, oh, you can't do that. We don't have the funds, because like we're both well aware of what funds we have and what kind of spending power we have. And then I would say our kind of strategy is to just prioritize like where we want to go and then spend accordingly. So, right now, one of our priorities is finishing up the renovation in the master suite that we have. And so I would say we allocate about 80% of our expendable income towards that. And then the rest is kind of, divvied out here and there with other little things that we want.
Hmm. I can see how it's challenging though. I mean, like if I want to buy a piece of equipment, gym equipment, like how would I talk to, the other half or someone about it and bring it up, making a purchase that's more for myself, I guess. So yeah, it's got to be difficult at times. Like, so if you were to meet today, do you think there'd be any issues financially as far as like what you'd have to discuss? Like you're saying in the beginning, there was no real money, so there wasn't much to talk about it.
Right.
But like now, you have your business, he has his career. Like, you think that would be something of a different conversation?
Yeah, I do. I think it would be very different now. And it's interesting because, right now in our current circumstances, I'm more like if you were to separate us, I would be what I would consider more dependent on him financially, at least for stability purposes. And but then it's like, but we have a kid, right? And I am primarily providing childcare while he works. So then there's like, okay, well that factors into it, and then but we have this long history of like, but then there was times that I worked and he didn't work and I supported him. So it's kind of like, built up to this point where even though I'm more dependent on him now, there's been times where it's been the opposite. And so it just feels even still. But if we were to come into this situation as it is right now, um, I think it would be a little uncomfortable and I could see how it would be difficult because it's like I would be asking for him to let me be dependent upon him on his income while I have inconsistent income. And it would feel more like I'm supplemental rather than contributing towards. And then it would be a whole discussion over like, well, where does my income, like, what does that go towards as far as like our expenses? Um, so I feel like it's tricky both ways. And in my mind, it's definitely easier to just count it all as one and what's left is what's left and you have to prioritize how you either invest that or spend it. And like you're saying with the piece of gym equipment, it's just kind of like, well, if gym's important to you and we have that money and that's one of our priorities, then there's no reason not to allocate towards that. But if you have different priorities than your partner, that's kind of where I could see it getting tricky because it's like, well, we only have, we might have $500 this month to allocate, but our priorities are different. So if I want to invest it, but you want gym equipment, then how do you handle that?
Yeah. Yeah. Be single. Stay single, I think is the
Yeah.
answer. That sounds much easier, but
Yeah. I mean, obviously you keep things separate and then you decide for yourself, but then it kind of negates marriage being a hack for financial wealth, like, right? Because
true.
like if you do keep things separate, then you're not really utilizing how you can use marriage as a tool, not that it should be, to for financial benefit. So
No, that's also what a lot of people in the comments for like the Twitter posts and things, they say, marriage is one of the greatest wealth hacks or
facts.
financial hacks, right?
Yeah.
But I think, it really comes down to picking the right individual. And I think talking about money is super important and goals and whatnot. And I think that's probably where I made a lot of mistakes, or maybe it wasn't important to me at the time, so I can see how, like you're saying in the beginning, you don't have money or it's not part of the conversation, and as things change, as you start getting into your careers, now it becomes a different topic, and something that you kind of got to grow with that person, and hopefully the same vision is still there between the two of you. And I think that's the challenge too, is finding someone that's on the same page as you.
Yeah. And what has it been like 12, I don't know, 13 years, 14 years, something that we've been married. And there's definitely stages.
You better get the right number.
Well, I mean, we've been together since 2006. So, but that was dating included. And then we got married in 2011. So 12 years going on
Yeah.
13.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so there's definitely been periods of growth where there's been shifts and there's been periods of different financial circumstances and it's a lot to stay on the same page. It definitely takes work and uh we're neither I would say one of our benefits is that neither one of us are the spender or the saver. Like we both kind of land in the middle of that. And so it really is about just kind of getting on the same page about where we want to go and then just plan accordingly, budget accordingly.
Yeah. I think the big thing too is just kind of like you were saying, there's just different, peaks and valleys. And at one point it's like your time to be maybe bringing in the income and you're focusing on something. And, like you saying, he's going to school at a certain time, but it's just kind of this peaks and valleys, and you're just, on this journey together.
Yeah, for sure. And it just we've had years where we've both kind of picked something that we wanted to do that year, or, if it was a bigger thing that we were saving for, and then kind of allocated to both of those things and just, split it that way. But really, yeah, we're pretty much on the same page about stuff like that. When it came to investing in real estate, that was the first time we had a big lump sum of cash to do something with. And I put the time in to figure out like, what's the best strategy for investing this lump sum, and then kind of pitched those ideas to him, and then got on the same page about, what we wanted to do. And um yeah, so I mean it's a lot of just getting on the same page. A lot of work goes into that.
So now, like net worth, do you calculate it as a couple or as husband and wife, or do you kind of have like your own, kind of idea what your worth is individually?
Um, so definitely jointly. I think we look at it uh, as a whole, because both of our names are on all the properties and all of our assets. Uh, you know, the only thing I would say that I'm aware of is like my business, the worth of my business and how I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that's just solely mine. I don't feel that way about it, but like his 401k, I don't think that I would necessarily count that in my net worth. But I don't think that he would count my business income or revenue or anything towards like his net worth either. So that part's kind of separate, I suppose. Um, we don't we haven't had, money for very long, so calculating our net worth, like I said, isn't hasn't been something that, I mean, it doesn't matter to us, I guess. It just matters that we're making the right moves financially. If I were wanting to tell people my net worth, I guess I would have to really figure out the difference there, because that would matter. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, it's all just together.
So it sounds like, when you first were dating and got married, like you said, there wasn't a lot of money. So I'm probably, assuming there was no prenup involved. But
Right.
like, if you were to maybe like meet today and we're getting married, are you for a prenup, you think?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, no, I don't think that I would be, but I think that I would be very cautious about making sure that my worth was known, and that if I was contributing, because that's the thing, is like you end up supporting your spouse in a lot of ways, even in their own ventures. That's part of why marriage is a hack, right? Is because it kind of makes them pursuing their things a lot more possible, and that amount of support is worth something. It's like having a teammate for your business, or a partner. And if you don't want to give them, stake in your company or stake in your ventures, then I would be a little hesitant probably to even get married to that person. So that would be me personally.
So you come off to me as very, like organized and structured, and you send out for your interview like bullet points we were joking about in your think tank. And so you don't think that you would want to have a prenup in place before you got married, like when, you can discuss it when, you know, emotions aren't involved and everyone is calm, and you can have this thing in place before you get married, before, God forbid things take the wrong turn and things are heated and whatnot, but have something in place in the beginning when you can actually talk about it and discuss things.
I mean, I think that I would definitely be having the conversations over like, how are we going to handle this? How is it viewed by both of us? And I would want to be on the same page and have an agreement as far as what that looks like. But as far as having a legal document that outlines it, to me, that just does something a little weird to the relationship, and I wouldn't enjoy that.
See, so now that would be the flip side, because what I saw or heard also, on social media is right, like the government pretty much already has a prenup set for you when you get married, right? So it's kind of like it's already there. And do you want them to kind of determine, if something was to happen, how are things going to be resolved? Or do you want to put it into your own hands and take care of it in the beginning? And now you guys can kind of work on it together and not have this kind of pre-made prenup already in place for you.
I mean, it really comes down to you and your partner and what kind of person you think you're getting into a relationship with. Because yeah, you're right. There's definitely guidelines already in place that are supposed to be, fair and equitable to both parties. And if don't want things to be fair and equitable at the split, then that's something that you should, address at the forefront. You can also like I mentioned before, we got on the call, like those guidelines are in place for when the split comes up, but that's if the split is not amicable. And so if you can't, you can also make your own guidelines at the end and split things as you please, as long as you're agreeable, then um, you have your say in it then as well. So it just depends. Like I said, if you don't want things to be fair and equitable when you split, then sure, get a prenup.
Well, I mean, your fair and equitable is different than the other person, So I think that's the thing, right? It's hard. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, and like you're saying, I mean, hopefully you pick the right person, and you guys are on the same page and whatnot. But I think that's the challenging thing. People change, and think people's goals and visions change, and when emotions and money, I think, are always involved, it's hard. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
no right or wrong way to do it, but just I think talking about it though is important. I think that's the one thing, is if people can talk about it, especially in the beginning. And like you say, it doesn't have to be in writing, or it doesn't have to be anything like a document, but I think that I've seen this too in my relationships. I think that's the biggest problem. It's just something that you don't really talk about, and then something comes up, and now more emotions are involved because it comes up in a certain situation where it's something that could have been somewhat discussed, and thing you could have an idea how this person might handle it. But a
Hmm.
lot of times, like you're saying, maybe like an impulse purchase, and you never discussed it with with this other person how you'd handle it, and then it now becomes this big event. But yeah, I think talking about that's super important.
Yeah. So I'm curious what you think because I mean, I don't know what I would do. At what point, like if you are dating a new partner, at what point would you bring up, finances and how you handle them and how you would want to handle them? Like at what point in the relationship does that become, a topic? And like at what point do you discuss like what kind of debt you have, what kind of income you make? Like
Mm.
where does the transparency come in? And then yeah, I'm curious, like at what point that would come up.
Wow, and that's my new business venture. It's gonna be an app for financial freedom dating. No, no, but I think I don't know. I think it really, if I was to meet someone, it would probably be in this somewhat circle, right? So I think it would already be an easy, not an easy conversation, but it's the people that I'm hanging around with. So
Right.
probably the person that I would meet is probably in these circles. So they probably have some interest in it, or this is something they're striving for also. So I think it would be a lot easier conversation. And I think honestly, it would just be something that would be kind of a normal conversation. I don't think it would be something where it'd be like, all right, let's sit down and talk about this today or on this date or whatnot. It would just be something like we would probably be hanging out, and it would just be part of the normal conversation, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's say, I think I saw this on as a tweet where
You're laughing already. What?
yeah, because the guy had tweeted that if a girl has mounds of credit card debt,
Mhm.
that's a deal breaker. Um, So I was just curious because I think the original tweet was talking about, how women who are pursuing a career are placing this pressure on themselves to think that, they need to be financially stable and secure to be appealing to guys who are also driven. And they're like, you're putting that pressure on yourself because a guy's never looked at a girl who didn't have an established career and said like, nope, never mind. And then the follow-up tweet was like, yeah, but guys will look at girls with mounts of credit card debt and say, nope, never mind. So I think that, yeah, but that's one of the things I think about when I'm like, well, at what point do you ask? Like, so do you have a lot of credit card debt
They got to fill out a credit report in the beginning.
to get on your app?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, right? I mean, I mean, it probably wouldn't be something that you would know early on, right? It would probably come up later on. So I guess, you probably would have some idea of who this individual is and, how they are. So, like, how would it come up, I guess, right? I mean, you may never know. I mean, I don't, so how, that's a great question. Like, how would you bring it up? I guess yeah, it would just be one of those instead of a, you know, movie nights, it would be a credit report night and, breaking down kind of maybe your assets and like, all right, let's see your assets and liabilities and let's see if we're going to move forward on this relationship. But, even like a tenant, right? I guess you got to break it down, right? What does this credit report consist of? Is it,
Hmm.
are you purchase impulse spending and buying, or was it, you had a tough point in your life and maybe you started a business and it went downhill and you have to use your credit card for things. And so just like trying to get a tenant into one of your properties, sometimes the credit report, yeah, it's a certain number, but you kind of got to look deeper and maybe see, why is it that way? Is this person just you know missing payments and not being responsible, or is
Hmm.
it just a period in
Or
their
did they
life
have
where,
an ex that was an authorized user
ah,
and,
yeah,
spent
yeah, that's
spent
a good
down there?
one.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that stuff
always the
happens for
ex's
sure.
fault, right? Blaming the
Yeah,
ex,
for
right?
sure. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, but that's it. Yeah, see, you just got to, break it down. But I think it's something, and I think it's how they handle it is a big, going to be a big factor. Like if you bring it up, or if it's something that's brought up, and are they defensive about it, or are they trying to make excuses for it? Then I think that's kind of maybe a red flag. Not that they did anything wrong. It's just they may not be, wanting to talk about money, or for them it's not a subject that they're going to talk about. So I think that might be a red flag. But if they're willing to sit down and go over it and kind of talk about it, and maybe they ask you, hey, how can I improve this, or what can we do about this, then that might help.
Yeah. Money was definitely a stressful point. It's probably still is. But we have a lot we're used to talking about it now. And at first when we would have to budget and we didn't have a lot to budget, especially in college. Like some of our income was student loans, and it was kind of like, okay, well, which one of us qualifies for a better student loan this semester, and is that enough to cover our living expenses too? And allocating all of that was very stressful and hard to do, but it has gotten a lot better with time. And now, when we talk about financial stuff, like it's definitely a much easier conversation.
Yeah, I think what's important too is that the person is, or both people are willing to talk about it and get advice, or recommendation. They're not defensive about it, or like, I'm going to figure it out on my own. Like, if they're willing to sit down and get other ideas, and because everyone has a different viewpoint, right? And someone else has a different idea of how you can maybe handle your credit situation, or a business
Hmm.
situation, or an investing situation. But I think just being able to sit down and talk about it and hear other people's ideas is super important. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
just making talking about money normal, I think is the next step.
Yeah. And even just if you can get on the same page about picking a strategy, if that's, you want to budget every dollar, or you want to, pay yourself first and then have, however it works, like just getting on the same page about a strategy to use, and then just follow that. And then you're not having to have as much discussion back and forth on your own ideas. You can just be like, well, this is our plan. We'll stick to that for a while and see how it goes. Uh, I think, but after we had this conversation, now I'm like, man, it'd be so much more difficult to meet somebody now than it would.
Oh,
I'm like,
see,
just get married while you're broke. Then you have no choice. Like it's just
yeah,
all together. Go for it.
yeah, it's gonna be a passport financial app, like passport financial dating app. That's gonna be my next venture.
So, are the passport bros, are the women that are they like needing someone to be dependent on? I don't,
Oh,
or are they like financially independent women and then do they keep are they keeping everything separate? I don't know. Like how do you
I
do that?
don't know. You yeah, you gotta ask the leaders, Mikey and Dividend Dave. Actually, right? He's one of the.
I honestly cannot imagine like living in the same house, eating the same food and being like having to say that like I pay 50% of the bills, you know? Like that seems so foreign to me that it would be odd. But like I said, we just have the, you know, a joint account and then I have my business account, but I pretty much reinvest all of my business funds into business expenses. So
But you're just oblivious to to the rest of what's going on out there. Like,
like how other people are handling it.
well, just when we were talking about the passport stuff, and you're
Oh
like, "What are you
yeah,
guys
yeah.
talking about?" But yeah,
It's true. Because I haven't needed like, you know, it's it's been more than a decade since I've even needed to consider that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm definitely out of the loop as far as that goes, but I'm very curious as to how it just sounds more difficult to try to keep things separate, but it is a mindset thing, you know, where I feel like wanting to do that is you're kind of already in the headspace of entertaining splitting things, right? And that's where it gets kind of difficult for me to be on board with as far as like what it does to the relationship if you're in that headspace. So,
yeah. See, crazy times, man. It's crazy out there. Just worry about yourself. That's yeah, yeah. But yeah, this was fun. I mean, I didn't know where this was gonna go, but it
yeah,
ended
me
up with my
either.
and I have this new business idea in my head. Now I'm gonna have to figure out how to make an app now, like a new dating app.
A dating app for financial nerds.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we'll do this again. I think this kit worked out well, and this was fun. And yeah, we'll do this again, and I'll see you later this afternoon on another one.
Yeah, we'll see you tonight. I'm looking forward to that. It should be fun.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.